it's from the edges, the two tackle spots, and they're both hurt right now, so there's not much you can say about that. So hopefully those guys can get back here sooner than later, and we can see this offensive line as it was intended to be played. Because I think it is quite a bit better and significantly better. So that's something to be optimistic about, as well as the offense in general.
Well, absolutely, and we certainly got to control those turnovers going into Washington, D.C., because that's a big thing. And I think, again, as we know, that's literally cost him the game. A report card on Frank Reich. I think that we all like him. I think he's won the fans over. He's won the press conferences. I think he's been very open and transparent about luck, about practice, about things that he expects from the Indianapolis Colts. He looked very strong and confident on the sidelines. I don't know that I would have enough data to question his play calling, but certainly being an offensive coordinator, you could see that kind of bleed through in Game 1 against the Bengals.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously they didn't win the game, so if you're assigning a grade, you can't give them an A. But that being said, I think as Colts fans took optimism away from that game, I think it comes from the coaching staff. I mean, you have to be excited about that offense. At times they ran a no huddle. They were up pace. They were up tempo. They were constantly gaining positive yards. Yeah, they left a couple touchdowns out there, I think. Obviously, in the first series, when you get the ball that deep, you want to get at least 3 points, and Luck turns the ball over. Again, I don't think that's on the coaching staff. That's on a bad decision from personnel, and that happens. It's football. I mean, the other team's on scholarship too, of course. But, I think that this coaching staff is really interesting. It's familiar to Colts fans because it is very similar to a Tom Moore-ish type of offense. It's definitely not, giving Andrew Luck the complete keys to the car like Peyton Manning had, but it's way more free than I think the restrictive Pagano era was. The defense is just more familiar to Colts fans, too. You know that they're going to give up a ton of yards. First off, because of lack of talent. But second off, that's the scheme a little bit, too. I mean, cover 2 gives up a ton of yards. The idea is to shore up past the 30 so you only give up a field goal. So I think we saw that for the most part. Yes, a very talented wide receiver got by defensive backfield. A.J. Green got past a few times. But for the most part, this team Sunday played well enough to win. They just couldn't overcome, 3 or 4 really silly mistakes.
And, those things are going to happen. And certainly you've got a young team. You got a new coaching staff. You got a quarterback coming back. Let's talk a little bit about Andrew Luck. Obviously, in the preseason games, all we wanted to do was see Andrew Luck get hit and get back up again. That's great. I think he's looked great. I think he's looked confident. I think that he's getting his rhythm back. Now, as fans, we want to stop seeing our quarterback get hit so much. It's great to see him get up, but let's think about it like this: the more he gets the more he gets hit, the more likelihood he's going to get hurt. And that's one key element that we cannot afford to lose this year. And there's a lot of naysayers out there that says Luck will not make it through the entire season. I am a firm believer. I'm a staunch believer in old number 12 that he'll find a way to play all 16 games. But there again, a lot of people might be right if he keeps getting hit. I don't think anybody wants to see their quarterback get hit many times as Luck gets hit. They've got to fill that gap somehow.
Well, you're right, and I don't know that it's in his nature to not take a hit or get hit. There was a play, it was a busted play. Jordan Wilkins got the ball. There was no hole I think it was the left guard. He pops out right, and Luck's it's just one of those things you had to see it, and I happened to catch it. Luck's first inclination was to go throw a block on a linebacker. He took 2 steps forward to go throw a block, and then he was like, that's probably not a good idea. So that right there tells me he's at least thinking about it, which is good. But at the same time, when the lane opens, he took off to run 2 or 3 times. I don't know how many rushing yards he had. But the reality of it was he's just a running quarterback. And when you have a mobile running quarterback, you're going to take more hits than you would otherwise. He also still, frankly, holds onto the ball too long. And I don't know that, again, that's a nature he can overcome. It's a situation where you want to lessen the hits. You want to encourage him to step up into that pocket and make the throw. He seemed to do that a bit more this week. I'm with you. I think he's going to play all 16. But, listen, things happen. He may not. I hope he does. But I think the Colts are in a situation where they feel better about the quarterback position in general. In other words, better about the whole room than they've probably felt in years. So they do have a viable backup. Obviously, you don't ever intend your backup to start 16 or 15 games. But if he has to play some minutes, I don't think that they're going to be too far off pace with Brissett. I mean, they will be. Obviously, Luck's the superior player. That's why he's starting. And he has, if he has a season played out like he had last week, he'll be a Pro Bowler and he'll be, a comeback player of the year and all that great stuff. But at the same time, I'm with you. He's got to lessen the hits. I just don't know if it's in his nature to do it. And you're just going to have to be prepared that he might have to miss a game. Like Cam Newton misses about a game, what an average is misses a game a season. So, I mean, it's just one of those things when you've got that kind of quarterback, you have to be prepared with a backup that can step in and play.
Well, absolutely. Next man up, that's for sure. Well, the Indianapolis Colts, as we mentioned, play tomorrow, 1 o'clock in D.C. There are plenty of things to watch for in this game, as we've talked about. The weather conditions could dictate who wins this game, with the wind and the rain from Hurricane Florence bearing down on that area. A lot of things to watch in the game, as the game pans out, Matt. One of those things to watch, as we talked about earlier, is the offensive line. They will once again be playing without left tackle Anthony Costanzo, which is a huge gap to fill, and he once again is out with his hamstring. That means Clark will have to deal with Ryan Kerrigan on the outside.
Yeah, Ryan Kerrigan's one of the best pass rushers.
Kerrigan, sorry.
Yeah, that's right, Purdue guy. One of the best pass rushers in football now. He is one of those guys that, Costanzo would have trouble with, so Joe Haig's going to have trouble with as well. You just have to stay on him, and you might have to put two guys on him. You might have to run your two tight end set, which they didn't run a ton of last week. I'm curious. I think we're going to see a little more of the two tight set, whether that means they are, the classic single back that the Colts kind of made famous years ago with Edgerrin James and then later Joe Adai. But I think you're going to run that more. You might split Ebron out into a slot situation. He's definitely able to do that. But I think just to have some help, you're probably going to run two tight ends more than you did last week. But the Colts, boy, again, coaching, you have to give them some credit. They kept Cincinnati out of their base defense most of the day because they ran three wide receivers. So there's obviously some gamesmanship and strategy to that as well. But I'm not sure you can leave Haig, who did a great job last week. I just don't know if you can leave him one-on-one with Ryan Kerrigan. And the rest of their pass rush is decent as well, too. So you have a situation where that's a tough matchup, and their linebackers in general are pretty good. So it's going to be a tough day, I think, gaining those 2 to 5 yard pickups. The deep ball might be there. Yes, Norman is an outstanding cover corner, but just like any great cover corner, you can beat them. It's just you got to make sure you know when you beat them to take advantage of it. So the deep ball might be there occasionally if the wind is not terrible, obviously. But that intermediate game, I think, is going to be really tough sledding tomorrow.
So, the other key to the game tomorrow, obviously they've got to stop the run. Adrian Peterson, he still got it. Had a great debut last week. He showed that he's got plenty of gas in the tank, or at least something left in the tank. And if the Colts let him run wild, they're in for a long and painful Sunday.
Well, their running backfield is interesting because, yes, they got Adrian Peterson, who's kind of like found the fountain of youth, or maybe he's just one of those guys that's kind of a freak of nature a little bit and just doesn't have the the miles on those tires that we all thought he did. But he, when he ran for like 80 some odd yards last week, and the reality of it is, I think they have to go well over 100 to beat the Colts tomorrow from a rushing standpoint. And I think they can do that. Washington can do that, but you're asking a guy that's, how old is he? Is he 30? What is he, 32?
32 or 33, yeah, I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah,
but he's
something
in
like
his
that. I don't
mid-30s.
have it off the top of my head, but I mean, for a running back, that's like kind of pretty advanced. So that's asking a lot. Already had a pretty heavy preseason for him because he was trying to earn a spot, and then he goes out and gets a pretty heavy dose in week 1, and now he's got to turn around and do it again in week 2. I could see that some slippage there, and the Colts had moments last week where they were very good against the run, and then as the game wore on, they were not as good. So it is going to be an interesting matchup, especially when you factor in the veteran presence that Peterson is.
Well, you talked about miles on the tires. I mean, let's think about what we've been thinking about with Adrian Peterson is the amount of time he's been in the league. But think about it. There was the time that he was suspended for the child abuse allegations, and there's some other things that kept him off the field. So really, in a lot of ways, he probably has 2 to 3 years that it shouldn't be calculated in the time that he's been in the league. So that may have something to do with it as well. And of course, one of the other final things that we need to talk about, the Colts tomorrow will be the that they have to control that. Both teams will turn it over multiple times, but I guess whoever wins the turnover game wins the game. Would you say? Yeah,
no, it is sometimes that simple, and obviously the Bengals won the turnover game last week, and that's how it went. I do anticipate a similar, sometimes correlation does not prove causation, right? That's like one of the 2 things I learned in college. But it is.
I was going to say that's awful
sometimes
for a Saturday morning, Mike.
I know it. But it is true. Sometimes it doesn't, but I think sometimes it does, and I think in this instance, it probably will, considering what we're guessing the type of game tomorrow will be. Whoever wins the turnover battle will probably win the game. Alex Smith is a very careful quarterback. I mean, you can say that he's maybe not as dynamic as some of the other quarterbacks in the league, but he is careful with the ball. And that is a strength that I think Washington will really enjoy with their running game and their passing game. I think that will aid them in several games this year. So I'll be interested to see if, in the end of the day, if 2 things belong to the winner, the turnover margin and also time of possession. Because, again, we're anticipating this is going to be more of a ground game, more of an intermediate game. So if time of possession and turnover belong to the winner, that would not surprise me at all.
All right, Matt, here it comes. You need to make it official. What is your official prediction for tomorrow's game, the Redskins versus the Colts on the road?
Yeah, I hate to. I'm a Colts fan, and I don't do as much radio work anymore, so I don't feel too shy in saying that anymore. I'm a Colts fan. I want to see this team win tomorrow. I just don't see it. I think it's Washington 24, Indianapolis 13. Is my hunch.
Well, I do like that 13 number. The Colts have a tough task on Sunday. They play on the road in bad weather conditions. I think they probably will cover the 5.5-point spread the last that I checked the spread was. Hopefully they'll be able to stop Peterson. I'm an optimist. I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go with that number 13. But I'm going to give it to the Washington Redskins, and I'm going to give the Colts 17-13 win over the Redskins. Just putting a fan note in there, if you will.
No, and listen, I could easily see this going the other direction. And what I hope as a Colts fan that not only do they get the win, but it's a catalyst that really maybe gets them rolling, and they can suddenly, take a shot at Philadelphia and Houston and New England, and maybe they can come out of this. This is a really tough stretch, but if they could come out at a game under or even at 500, like this thing could still happen. I mean, the division. We haven't really talked about this. The division is not that good. I mean, Jacksonville, sure, they seem to be the